there's a video on YouTube called Fulfilled Bible Prophecy, and basically it starts off with just this big fat lump of lard basically saying how anyone can die suddenly, and suggest he's more likely because of his weight that he's going to die suddenly, so maybe he worries about it more, I don't know. And basically he's giving all these statistics, and you can see where he's going with this. He's gonna say, now are you ready if you die suddenly? And he's gonna go threaten people with eternal torture, the scare tactic. And surprise, surprise, at the end of the video he does just that. He goes back to it after supposedly proving that the Bible is a credible source of prophecy. Now the actual video lasts about nearly an hour, and basically it only talks about 3 prophecies in the whole thing. I expected a big amount of prophecies. Now half of the video is him saying you can die any second and that you want to be safe from hell, and then like going into astrology and disproving astrology and psychics, and I skipped most of that because I was just like, I fucking know psychics are bullshit. It's just as stupid as the superstitious nonsense you believe in. So anyway, to get on to the prophecies, now I'm going to talk about 2 of the prophecies that he mentioned. He mentioned the Bible's prophecy about the destruction of Tyre in Ezekiel, where God says that Nebuchadnezzar is going to destroy Tyre and leave it as bare as a rock. Now, this didn't happen, and he goes around this by saying that he said that God will raise nations against Tyre, and this is flawed because the bit where it's on about Tyre being laid bare as a rock and never being rebuilt, he was talking about Nebuchadnezzar. He says Nebuchadnezzar, his armies will lay siege and you will be as bare as a rock and won't be rebuilt. Nebuchadnezzar did do a lot of damage to Tyre, but he didn't destroy it, and he didn't leave it as bare as a rock, and he failed to actually to take control of Tyre. So this, obviously that failed, but he goes around that by saying he's going to bring nations against it, and he talks about Alexander the Great then a few hundred years later, who does basically massacre Tyre and destroy the whole place. And then he ends the video by saying, ends that section of the video by saying that no archaeologist can find any remains from Tyre because they don't exist. And he said, and Tyre has never been rebuilt because God said that it would never be rebuilt. Well, there's a slight problem with this. The fact that Tyre fucking exists and is a place which exists today in Lebanon, right? And it's a city home to about 120,000 people, and it's quite a popular tourist destination. It's got lots of ancient ruins and stuff you can see, and it's a very nice little town, but it is there. It has been rebuilt. There's plenty to see there, and so he is just completely wrong. I mean, you just do a fucking Google search. You say it's never been rebuilt, and you challenge the person watching, the skeptic watching, to disprove this prophecy and find Tyre. Well, fucking found it. 120,000 people fucking found it because they live there. And it has been rebuilt. It is not still bare as a rock, as the man claims. So, anyway, after moving on from that, there's the prophecies about Jesus, which are apparently in the Bible, and he gets all these prophecies. Like he says, the chances that all these coming true, and then he said, according to a certain mathematician, is this, and he gives these crazy odds. And he says, so therefore, it's kind of saying like the chance of that being fulfilled is very small, and it has been fulfilled. Therefore, that proves that that Jesus is in fact real. That the God of the Bible is real. There's quite a problem with this, really. The fact that most of the prophecies there the events that apparently were talked about in the Bible, there's no actual independently verifiable evidence to suggest that they even happened. So I'll go through a few examples. So I've got a list of the 44 prophecies of Jesus Christ fulfilled. Alright, Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. There's actually no record of where Jesus was born, so that can't be historically verified. Messiah will be born of a woman. That's definitely not verified in historical records. That's just not there. So people who write about Jesus later said that he was born of a virgin, and he said he was born of a virgin, but that doesn't mean he was born of a virgin. Messiah will come from the line of Abraham. Well, Abraham didn't exist. There is no evidence of any of the Bible characters existing up until about King David. So Abraham didn't exist. He would be a descendant of Isaac. Again, Isaac didn't exist. There's no evidence to suggest Isaac existed. Messiah would be a descendant of Jacob. Again, Jacob didn't exist. There's no evidence. Be heir to King David's throne. Well, Jesus never became king, so that didn't come true. Messiah's throne will be anointed and eternal. Well, that's a spiritual thing. If you believe in Jesus, then you believe that, but there's no evidence, historical evidence, to suggest that he's up in heaven. So, these are things which can't be verified. A massacre of children would happen at Messiah's birthplace. Well, there is no evidence, historically speaking. There's no evidence left behind of any massacre happening in Bethlehem whilst King Herod was on the throne. Then scroll down this list some more. So the Messiah would speak in parables. Well, Jesus thought he was the Messiah, and he knew that it was prophesied that the Messiah would speak in parables. So guess what? He spoke in parables. That's what they call self-fulfilling prophecy. That's nothing really sensational. He would be betrayed, and then it gives a specific amount of money in the Bible which would be used, that prophecy which would be used, and again, that can't be independently verified. There's no independent source, there's no government source about Jesus's betrayal. The earliest sources we have on that come from the Gospels. The earliest one was written 40 years after Jesus had died, so that's not like a primary source in that respect. That's just someone who wrote about it long after he died, based on some legends about the man that had been made after he had died. So go for a few more. He would be forsaken by God. Well, there's no evidence that God exists. Obviously, that can't be verified. He would pray for his enemies. Again, other than the Bible, the Gospels, and the books which were written about him long after he died, there's no actual primary sources which suggest that he prayed for his enemies on the cross. Messiah will be buried of the rich. Jesus' tomb has never been found. They don't actually know where it is. They gave one in the Bible, but that hasn't been verified that he was actually buried there either. Messiah would resurrect from the dead. Well, there's definitely no evidence apart from what's written in the Bible, the appearance to 500 people. Well, guess what? That can't be verified other than what's in the Bible. 500 people did not actually see him. The Messiah would ascend to heaven. Again, this is not a historical fact. This is not something which can be verified through any historical records. Jesus ascending to heaven other than what the holy books say, and the books which are written about that. The Messiah will be seated at God's right hand. Again, that can't be verified. We can't see him up there on God's right hand, so that can't be verified. Messiah would be a sacrifice for sin. Well, again, that can't be verified. That's a theological thing. That's not like a historical fact. So half of these are theological, and half of these are historical events which can actually be verified. And so the burden of proof has not been met. You have to prove that these events actually took place before saying this proves that the Bible is right. You can't just have the Bible says that these events took place after the Bible predicted that they were going to happen, therefore the Bible is right and has proved itself. Well, no, an independent source would have to say, oh yeah, this what the Bible said is actually correct, this did happen, but there aren't any of these sources for these events which I've just described. So if you want to prove that the Bible prophecies have come true, you've got to do better than that. You've got the destruction of a town which will never be rebuilt when a town has in fact been rebuilt, and you have a bunch of events which can't be verified. So the mathematics becomes irrelevant on that, because until you can actually prove that these happened, they're irrelevant and you can't include them in the mathematics. Because it says so in the Bible, it's not evidence. If the Quran was to have a bunch of predictions and then later on in the Quran it says how these predictions came true, you won't go, oh, well, that must be true because the Quran said so, would you? I mean, if you just think a bit and see that you are not going to convince any skeptics on this, and if you do, the skeptics you're convincing are pretty damn stupid ones, because Tyre exists and because the events you described aren't verifiable by historical sources.